All right, good afternoon and welcome to the District of Brown Deer School Board meeting. I'm Dr. Buto and I'd like to be able to call this meeting to order at 6:00 p.m. Verification of public notice. The meeting was publicly noticed. Verification of a quorum. We have all 7 board members in attendance this evening. Approval of the agenda. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
All right, Ms. Bacon has made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Peterson is a second. Any discussion before we go to vote? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor with raised hand and or aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries unanimously 7-0. And our mission statement, together with our families and community, we will inspire students to be passionate learners, creative thinkers, and innovative leaders who enrich our world. All right, let's go into our business office report. Mr. Clemming.
For doing this new, I'll sit here so that people can see the back of my head and not your voice.
All right.
Distant from off screen. So good evening, everyone. I don't have a formal presentation for you tonight regarding the business office report, but I just thought I'd highlight a couple of things that we continue to work on. We're obviously also finishing up the hiring process, we hope. We have a few more hires tonight we're excited to bring to you, and just kind of filling some of our last minute positions. There still are a couple of teaching vacancies and looking at some of the educational assistants, trying to fill those voids. From the business office as well. And then of course, our first major payroll of the new school year is this week. So we had our consultant in yesterday. I tried to go through it and we tried to make sure we got everybody in there. So we're double checking that and we'll make the adjustments we have to make, but that's always a big issue for the business department, just to make sure that's all up and running. And we have all the new teachers, removing the old teachers and all that as we start this new school year. A couple other things in the business office then, just transportation. Obviously that continues to be a bit of a challenge for us. Right Way has been a good partner so far. We have been working with them. And obviously there's still a lot of fluidity with staffing in transportation. I know you've seen, or if you have seen, some of the news stories of other districts in the area and things that are going on. And certainly our situation is it's not perfect, but it isn't quite to that point. But we have had situations where we've had to blend routes. We have had situations with delayed busing and things like that. But today, as far as I know, we did not have to blend any routes. So that's a better sign. We're hoping that as time goes on, that continues to get better. And we're also right now trying to finalize the route list of students now that we have a better sense of who is coming, who needs bus transportation, that we can kind of relook at the routes at that point and make sure that we're adequately prepared. So if we don't want to have an extra route, it's already challenging enough to get bus drivers. So if we could have 6 or 7 routes and have those consistently, that'd be better off than trying to go with 8 and not have enough staffing for that.
Question for you, Kevin.
Yes.
In relationship to that, I know last year we started out with 8 and then we ended up with 7. So are we talking about trying to go down to 6 routes?
No, well, I mean, we had a day where we had 5, so it has fluctuated. We're looking at the numbers to see, where we're at from a usage standpoint. How many kids are signed up for the bus, how many are actually riding it. So right now we are still aiming for 8. That is still what they're trying to do, but I would say I don't know that we ever hit 8. Maybe, I think we're hitting 7 on a consistent basis. We're still blending a couple of routes together. So we'll see how that kind of shakes out over the next week. We do have our third Friday count is at the end of the week as well. So we'll have, again, a better sense of how many students we have, make sure everyone that is on the roster is showing up. And the secretaries in the buildings are helping us do that as we kind of cull through the list now and say that, well, these students that are on our busing list actually haven't arrived yet or haven't started coming. So we can start to make adjustments for that. So we are hoping to do that over the next several weeks. The app has been a little bit hit and miss, to be honest. I don't know whether the blending of routes causes issues from time to time, but we have had reports of, it hasn't been widespread, but we have certain parents who said, oh, we never heard anything about a specific route, and it might've been because two buses were blended. But for the most part, it has been working and supposedly putting out the information when there are delays that parents need to know about. And we certainly understand, the parents' concern when buses are running late or when we have issues with the blending and things like that. We are certainly working with them as best we can. We obviously are dealing with the shortage of bus drivers, frankly, and we are we're certainly working with them to help encourage additional hiring and additional retention of their staff. But even they'll say that, they have people, they think they have people that are ready to go, and then they just don't show up for work. So that's just a challenge in that industry especially. So we are working with them, and we've had good communication so far.
Question, I guess one more question then.
Sure.
Is the students that were on there that were part of the River Run apartment complex, have we figured out how we're doing the transportation for those students?
Yes, Right Way actually has been able to partner with us. It's a very small subset. Some of the families, I actually found accommodations within that same apartment complex, so they just jumped around. I think there was one other family that found housing in Brown Deer, just at someone else's home. So we had, when we started a couple weeks ago, we had, I think, 8 kids that were getting picked up from various points in Milwaukee and heading north. And Right Way was providing us a van from the Nicolay terminal to help do that. And so that worked out pretty well. Since then, I think there have been some changes, and that's the challenge of this transportation service, where we're basically helping people who are, more or less homeless during this time, is that does change. They may get an apartment somewhere else, or they may get one in Brown Deer eventually. So we are working with them, and sometimes some families have just opted that it's easier for them to bring their kids to school. So we have worked with all the families that were affected, and right now transportation is still being provided to those who need.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for that update.
Yep. Food service, just a reminder, we have kicked into full gear with our food service. I just want to make sure we communicate to our families. We're still, we haven't gotten to the point yet where we have student IDs yet, so it has been a little bit of a challenge for, lunches have gone a little slower than we would like at this point, but we are hoping to have those any day now, because kids don't always know their number, or they didn't have their ID for scanning purposes, so we have to go by names, and so it does kind of slow down the process, but we are hoping to speed that up very shortly. Staffing has been pretty good from the food service standpoint. We haven't had a lot of shortages, and Michelle Anderson, our food director, has done a really good job of having people in place. So we're pretty pleased with that. But then we're just reminding families this is more or less a normal year for lunches. So while we are able to provide breakfast for free, which we'll continue to do for the rest of the school year, lunches we can't. So that is a paid situation. So if families are eligible for the free and reduced lunch programs, that they should apply through the federal government and through paperwork that we have on our website and in our offices. If they do qualify, then, when we swipe kids' IDs, then there's no charge and there's nothing that they have to worry about. Otherwise, I think there has been a little bit of confusion this year. And so some of the students, when we do have a situation where there's a paid lunch and there's no money in the account, we do go negative temporarily, but we do then alert the families that there is, eventually that they do have to pay for those lunches. So it's a communication piece that we're just trying to make sure we share with everyone, so they do understand that if they aren't signed up for and don't qualify for the free reduced lunch, that those lunches are paid for this year. So just trying to get that word out. And then finally, the big piece that we're continuing to work on is just kind of closing up the final steps of the audit for 21-22. And we hope to have that accomplished in the next several weeks, at least our part of it. And then it'll be, the auditors will be finalizing their work. So that's been a big piece. And again, as I mentioned, we're a little short staffed in the business office right now. We have one opening, and we have my payroll specialist is on leave, maternity leave right now. So the three of us are working as hard as we can to get all those things taken care of, while we're also hiring, while we're also getting the buildings up and running for the school year. So we appreciate, I appreciate my team and everything that they've done. We've been working as hard as we can to get everything up and running. Any other questions? Okay.
When is the audit due for the state?
There are various pieces. We have to report an aid calculation really this week, and then the auditors go through and do their work. And then they did extend it, knowing that there was some extenuating circumstances for all districts. They pushed everything out a week, what they normally do. So it's usually by the end of the month, everything will be.
End of September.
Yeah. And then you'll get the audit. The audit will be sent to me at some point in the fall, and then we'll do a presentation again, usually in December.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. That's all I have for a business office report.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Clemming. Any board members, have any other questions for Mr. Clemming in relationship to either food service, transportation, audit? All right, thank you very much, sir. All right, let's go on now to our next item. Item B is approval of new hires. Mr. Clemming?
Yes, we have 3 new hires we're very excited about. And I'm also very excited that item C doesn't have to be held. We have no resignation. So it's a super positive day. So under the new hires, we have two teachers. Amy Harmeyer will be joining us as a middle school special education teacher, and Latoya Willingham as a high school special education teacher. Those two are contracts for the 22-23 school year. And then in addition to that, that'll be a separate motion because it's a 2-year contract. We have selected our new assistant principal at the elementary school, and that is Morgan Conyers.
All right, thank you very much. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the hiring of the special education teachers for the 2022-2023 school year?
So Dr. Beadle, I'd like to make a motion to approve the hiring of Amy Harmeyer as middle school special education teacher for the 2022-2023 school year.
All right, actually, we can do both of the special education teachers together.
And then I'll make another motion.
Or just add.
I'll just add to the motion to approve the hiring of Latoya Willingham as a high school special education teacher for the 22-23 school year.
All right, thank you very much. A motion has been made by Ms. Ashley. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Bacon is the second. Any conversation or discussion prior to vote? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor with raised hand and or aye. Those opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries unanimously 7-0 for the hiring of Amy Harmeyer and Latoya Willingham as special education teachers. All right, thank you very much, ladies, for becoming members of the Brown Deer family, and we're expecting great and wonderful things for you and from you and helping out our students and during this special time of their lives. All right, next. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the employment agreement for Morgan Conyers for the assistant principal position?
Dr. Beadle, I'd like to make a motion to approve the employment agreement for Morgan Conyers as an elementary school assistant principal for the 22-24 school year.
All right, a motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Bacon. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor with raised hand and or aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries unanimously 7-0. So we welcome Ms. Conyers as our elementary school assistant principal for the next 2 years, and we will be expecting great things. All right, let's go on to our next item. Item C, our approval of resignations. Mr. Clemick?
We have no resignation.
Hearing and seeing none. Thank you very much. All right, that makes life good. All right, let's go on to our next item. Item 3, our engaged learners. Would that be Dr. Kelsey Brown?
Yes, just wanted to provide a brief update. This is actually our first full week where we have 5 days of school this week. But the first 2 short weeks went really well. Systems are in place in our buildings. And just a few updates around some things that have occurred. As Mr. Clemick mentioned, we have an art teacher at the elementary school that vacancy we still need to fill. So if anybody knows art teacher out there who's willing to come and help service 750 students at the elementary school, we would welcome them to apply on weekend. And then the other positions that we are continuing to fill are our paraprofessional positions. So that's an update on staffing. In the first couple of weeks, we've had just a whole lot going on with professional development for our staff. We did trauma-informed care professional development. Ms. Velvet Moore came in and did bullying training for us. We had a mental health parent series, our first one that took place last Wednesday, I believe it was, where there were a total of 17 parents and staff in this virtual experience. And it really proved to be beneficial in my estimation. We had a couple of parents who were on that evening who were new to the district. And they were very worried about their students being new to the district and not making friends and the whole thing that we all worry about with parents. And so that morning I was able to touch bases with both principals and then our SEL coaches to go in and touch bases with those young students, and they were doing well. And so that's just one of the results or outcome of that virtual experience and taking a look at mental health and making sure we understand what anxiety and depression looks like in our students and being mindful of that and responsive to it. So that went really well with Lakeisha Russell. Dr. Kiana Jones, Assistant State Superintendent, chose Brown Deer as one of the schools on the first day of school visits. She came by and paid us a visit and had great things to say about our building. She is a Brown Deer resident and had never been in our buildings. So I'm glad that she was able to stop by. Wow, volleyball games going on. We had a great author visit by Miss Tiffany Jackson, where our middle school and our high school students had an opportunity to engage with an actual author. Had lots of great questions. The students had lots of great questions for her, and she also did a book signing. So that was hosted by Kara Turner in the library, Kara Turner and team. But mostly Dolores Brown, one of our outstanding librarians who continues to engage kids as we move forward. And then finally, I'll just wrap up with, we had a successful color run. I'm gonna call it a color walk for the adults. Because only the kids seem to be the ones that were running. But it was a great opportunity to bring the community out. It was well attended. We had Bango from the Milwaukee Bucks. That was well received, some braces for the kids, and we have food trucks out here on 60th, and that was well received. And so things are settled, and we're off to a good start for the school year. So if there are any questions I can answer, I'd be happy to answer.
I was wondering when you gonna put the rainbow type afro back on again. What's going on? I saw the picture. I was like, what's going down?
On the next color run.
Okay, all right, okay. Just kind of wondered about that, but I was like, okay.
Football has started also.
Yes,
Yes.
football has started, cheer,
Yeah.
cross country. It's just a lot going on in these.
Football actually is a third game. They could have had a third game
Third
for
game.
football already. Yeah.
Right, yeah, so it's a lot going on, and it's good.
All right. Any questions for Dr. Kelsey Brown?
All right.
All right. You want to go to our next item is our enrollment update.
Yes, just a quick update on enrollment at the current moment. We have a total of 1,659 students enrolled here in the school district of Brown Deer. 1,400 are returning and 259 are new. So we look forward to an amazing third Friday count. As we know, that's cumulative over 3 years, but we will take it.
Fine, we will take it. I guess I don't know if Monica, if this is Dr. Kelsey Brown, this is a question for you or for Kevin. Did we budget at that same number, that 1,659? Is that what we did the budget at?
I was very flat with the overall enrollment. So that I haven't checked to see the update on the open enrollment out, because that's also part of.
Because I was gonna ask that was gonna be my next question.
Right, so from a kids in the building situation, we're very close to last year. Now, it did continue to grow over the course of time, and I'll be honest, we still get families ringing the bell and coming in almost every day, still registering students. So I'm sure that number will adjust a little bit over the next. Friday is the count date, so we'll see where that is, and then we'll combine that with the open enrollment out numbers to see where we're at, and then that'll be our for the revenue limit calculation. That will be our membership count. We're on target.
What's the normal number?
What's normal? We had 1,650 students last year, because we came up from it was like 1,490.
1,490 then.
So it's 150 some jump from the previous year, the year first post-COVID year. So we're on pace. I didn't want to overextend and put too many kids in the seats to expect we'd have revenue that we would be able to have. So this is positive for us, and I think we would agree that we don't necessarily, we want to make sure we have all of our staffing for the kids that we have. And so I don't know that we would necessarily celebrate another 15 kids right now. We want to make sure. So, but I feel pretty good.
Right. Exactly. Okay.
And then third Friday count is this Friday.
Yes.
Right,
it is.
right.
Mhm.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Dr. Kelsey Brown and or for Mr. Clemick in relationship to enrollment? All right, thanks for that update. And seems that our numbers continue to grow. So those are great things. All right, let's go on to item number C, discussion of our memorandum of understanding with New Leaf Therapies. Dr. Kelsey Brown.
Yes, so I included the executive summary as it relates to our partnership, or an established partnership with New Leaf Therapies. And as I indicated prior to COVID, we were in the initial conversations around providing this support for students at the elementary school in particular. And we had to press pause because of COVID, obviously, and then Mr. Dallahan approached us again to get this partnership established and solidified as we continue to move forward. Mr. Dallahan has 2 children at the elementary school and has supported us in the trauma-informed care training with our staff already. And so what we'd like to do is be able to ask Mr. Dallahan to, he will observe some classrooms for us and understand some of the behaviors of some of our students, and then partner with the teacher to strategize around strategies that we can employ with the students, which we know the behaviors will hopefully transfer as they make progress from one grade level to the next, in partnership with parents, of course. And so these strategies will not be employed without the consent of the parent, but we think this is a way to continue to work with our SEL team under the direction of Ms. Ramos, and continue to work on helping kids understand what strategies they can employ from the standpoint of intrinsically as they go through our school district and school district around here. We earmarked a lot of our supports for the middle and the high school historically, for the most part. And with the building of 750 students at the elementary school, we know that there's some additional supports that are needed there as well. So we believe this is a way to help our students, help our families, as well as keep our students in the classroom, in school and learning. Mr. Dallahan is on with us this evening, and so if the board has any questions for him, he will be more than happy to answer, or I'd be more than happy to answer. And then finally, just to wrap it up, these dollars will be, as you know, we received the Get Kids Ahead initiative, our mental health grant to the tune of $32,000, and this is where those dollars will come from.
So I guess my question then, Dr. Kelsey Brown, is, and just looking at this, so I saw this about the $50 per hour. So if it's 5 hours a week, I did the math at 40 weeks or whatever, it came up to be the $10,000. So, all right, so you're asking for us not to exceed $10,000 for approval, but so what is the $32,500 for?
So the $32,500 is the total dollar amount. In our conversation with Josh, it would just, we didn't see it exceeding that for this year for his services. So we would take a look at the other 22,000 and figure out what we want to do.
Okay.
We're also looking at exploring the potential for teletherapy for some students. So we know students are tied to their cell phones, we know that. But we also know that sometimes you're more apt to talk to someone that you may have less of familiarity with for therapy services. And so we want to try that eventually, not with Mr. Dallahan, but with another service. But we want to take a look at using those additional dollars for that and some other things that may come our way.
All right, so 10,000 out of the 32.5, you're earmarking for Mr. Dallahan and his services. So that was at $50 an hour, but then also saw within the contract, there was $60 an hour for some consultation. So was there a reason why there was a different dollar amount for the consultation per hour compared to the regular sessions that he was doing?
That's a great question. Let me have Josh. Oh, Josh.
Or Ms. Ramos could answer that question for us.
I can answer it actually. It's sorry, it's pretty, hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. It's pretty simple. When we originally did the MOU, my fee was $60 an hour. That's kind of what we came to as a price. And then when I 3 years later, when I met with Dr. Kelsey Brown, I said, I'm going to take my normal consultation fee, which is $100, and just cut it in half because I'm very invested personally and professionally in working with BDE. And so I just cut it in half. And so it's $50 an hour. So there is no $60. That's the old number. The new number is
So
$50.
we need to change it. then.
So do we need to change that on the memorandum of understanding on page 3?
Page 3, right.
Yes,
Wherever it appears, yeah.
I can change it. It's not a problem.
Okay, thank you. And I was, because like I said, when I was reading it through, I kind of was like, okay, wait a minute, where are we kind of at in relationship to that?
It's a good catch.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, anyone else have any questions in relationship to this? Ms. Robinson, and I know Ms. Peterson had her hand raised as well too.
So I just wanted to ask, do we think that this will be effective at up to 5 hours a week?
So Josh has other responsibilities as well at the moment. So right now, we want to try and see where that takes us. So the initial part of this will be the observations in the classroom. And so if it extends beyond that, that's a conversation we'll have as a team. But right now, that's what we're thinking. We haven't, it's a little trial and error in this to figure out where we might need to go next. If you want to add to that, Josh, feel free to do so.
Yeah, I think more than just a limitation on my hours, 5 hours a week of doing observations. Initially, Mr. Griffin asked me to observe every class actually in the elementary school, and so I'm going to take about 30 minutes to 60 minutes for each class, probably more like 60. That's what I did today. Actually, I was in the school today, checking out some classes, and I was able to kind of assess and figure out which students might need some help, and so that was a good amount of time. I think if I do that for I'm not quite sure how many classrooms you have, maybe 25, is that correct?
Close to 25, right? About 5 classrooms per grade levels.
Over the next month or so, if I am able to observe all of the classes and then start implementing other things, I think it might be enough. It's definitely going to be enough over time. So we don't want to, I think, go too fast to try to implement a bunch of things with a bunch of different teachers. I think kind of, keeping it at a pace where, and the teachers have to be available as well. So I'm going to be in the classrooms doing the observations, and then I'm going to be taking a little bit of that time to do some kind of consultation with the teachers and kind of get them set. So I think just paced out, I think my guess is that 5 hours a week is going to be okay. If I need to do more than that, I'm willing to kind of free up my schedule as I have, clients discharge or whatever to add to that. But 5 hours we thought, was a good start. We'll kind of see where we're at, kind of see what we need. If I need to add to that, we will. But that's what we came up with so far.
Ms. Robinson, was your question answered?
Will we need to take another vote or adjust the memorandum if the decision is made to exceed that 5 hours a week?
Well, it's really just approval of the MOU with the partnership, because the threshold for approval with the board is 20,000. Is it 20,000? 20,000 is the threshold. So we're really just asking the board to allow us to establish the partnership and solidify the partnership through the MOU with New Leaf Therapies. So it's not necessarily the dollar amount because it's below the threshold.
Okay.
It's about the partnership, right?
All right, Ms. Peterson?
I was just curious to know whether or not we know whether or not this is a renewable grant. In other words,
We
what
don't know
happens
yet.
after this year with this program? If we are not able to get the grant, will we try and build this program if it's successful into our own budget? Have you thought that far at all?
That's a great question, and that's one thought. But the other thought too is we also continue to receive Title IV dollars,
Okay.
where mental
We
health
can use it
can
for
be
that.
used for through Title IV.
Okay.
That's another option as well. So sustainability is absolutely key in this instance,
Yeah.
because we know our students are experiencing more trauma now than ever before, and we want to be responsive to it. So that's a great question.
All right, Ms.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Ashley?
I just have a question regarding the provision of services and the consents that are required. Karen, how does that work? If you are observing classrooms and you're identifying individuals who might be in need of services, how do you, maybe I'm getting in the weeds with the consents and that kind of thing. Is that kind of something that you do in the beginning?
Yeah. So you want me to answer that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it
This is really driving me crazy.
it's laid out a little bit in the
you got it.
MOU where if there's a student that might need some services, I'll talk to the social worker, kind of get a gauge on services that might already be happening for the student, and maybe they don't need additional services that I would provide. But if they don't have anything going on, they might need some services. Then we talk to the parents, and then the parents decide whether or not they want services to move forward. And then if they do, that child just becomes a New Leaf Therapies client. So all the consents and all that stuff just goes through New Leaf Therapies. The school isn't involved in any of the consents and all those things. I report to the school, but you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I kind of do it all through New Leaf.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know. Thank you.
I got a question for Ms. Ramos, actually. So within this, I know that and I'm hoping I'm not getting ready to put you on the spot, but you are our person, so you are our expert. So now with this happening, and us being able to do this in elementary school, but this contract also stipulates that it was going to potentially do something over into the academy. So do you think that that's enough hours? I mean, 5 hours a week to do some of the things over the elementary school, and then we know the reason for the academy is all students that are in the academy are SEL students. So do you think is that 3 to 5 hours? Do you think from your professional experience, do you think that's enough time?
Well, professionally, no. However, looking at Village Academy and the services that were provided prior to students being placed there, I feel we're not sufficiently in place. And I think having this therapy and experts in trauma would help us with some of our students there that perhaps we didn't know had trauma, but now we do. And I would work with Josh to go ahead and see how we can delineate that for them. Currently, there are 5 students at the Village Academy. And I think we would have enough time for those students, yes.
Okay, but I know that that the Village Academy was supposed to have about, what was it, 12 to,
This year, but they didn't all come back.
okay, all right.
So I think that'll be part of the Village Academy update.
Okay.
Share that information.
All right, okay, sounds good. All right.
All right.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ramos. I'm going to put you on the spot on that. I tried to. All right. Any other questions for Dr. Kelsey Brown or for Mr. Delahan or Ms. Ramos in relationship to our Estes with the memorandum of understanding with New Leaf Therapies? Hearing and seeing none, would someone like to make a motion to approve?
Dr. Beto, can I make a motion to approve the 2022-2023 memorandum of understanding with New Leaf Therapies LLC as presented?
And with the
With the correction.
correction.
To change 60 to 50.
Yeah, thank you for that catch. With the correction to change the $60 per hour to $50 per hour on page 3.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much, Ms. Peterson. The motion has been made. We have a second.
I'm second.
Oh, thank you very much, Ms. Walker. Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion and or questions prior to vote? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor with raised hand and or aye? Aye. Those opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries unanimously 7-0. Mr. Delahan. All right. We'll be-
Thank you so much.
Some great things. All right.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Josh.
Yes, you're
All right.
welcome. Thank you.
You're
All
welcome.
right, let's go on to item D, our River Place apartment update. Dr. Kelsey Brown, was that Dr. Kelsey Brown?
Yes,
Okay.
and this is just we said we would follow with the board around our students who have been displaced as a result of the natural disaster in the apartments. Recognizing that all of the students are now, we're now servicing all of our students under the auspices of the McKinney-Vento Act. And that also includes that they will not pay for lunch
Thank you.
during the duration of their enrollment here in the school district of Brownfield. So it's just a follow-up to
Thank
the
you.
discussion. And that's it for the item D, 3D.
All right, and that's, and then from a personal standpoint in relationship to the, I really like to thank Dr. Kelsey Brown and her team in relationship to thinking about these parents and these students who have been displaced and then being able to use the McKinney-Vento Act to be able to make sure that these students end up with the free transportation, the free food, free reduced lunch and everything else like that or whatever, because at this time I couldn't even imagine if I had a fire at my house and I just lost everything. And some of those things that you don't necessarily really think about is being displaced like that. And how do I get to school? And, do I have money to be able to eat every day and things of that nature and stuff? So thank you very much, Dr. Kelsey Brown, for ensuring that is happening for those students, because, that's a big thing to let our community know. The district cares, and we sympathize and we empathize. All right.
And the impact could be 5 students or 500 students. We care here in Brown Deer, and we're going to help what we can. And it surely showed in this case. So I say thank you as well.
You're welcome.
We always say family business. All right.
And may I just also add, and I will not mention the name, but our district was kind enough to, we came together and collected funds for our one teacher
Mhm.
who was impacted. And so
That's great.
we also did that as well for her. So,
That is wonderful. Great news, and good news that a lot of our students have now found a place. It might not be permanent, but our students have found places to, our families have found places to lay their heads and have a roof over their head. All right. So now let's go on to item number 4, engaged and innovative staff. Dr. Kelsey Brown.
yes, Mrs. Ramos will provide our 21-22 annual seclusion and restraint report.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And just to clarify, it's Ramos?
Ramos, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You have to give me every time. Thank you for correcting me.
Yes, this is the 21-22 seclusion and restraint report. And so I have compiled the data for that time that I was not here. So I hope that if there are any questions, I am able to answer them. But if not, I will get an answer for you for the following time. So not to read word for word what we have here, however, we report anytime we have a seclusion or restraint to parents and DPI. And so as part of that, all such incidents are now broken down by school and events. So a seclusion, we had 0 seclusions in Brown Deer Elementary last school year, 3 restraints. The number of students involved were 3, and the number of students with disabilities were 3, so all 3. The middle school had no restraints, no type of reports indicated. And at the high school level, we did have 2 seclusion, 5 restraints. Total number of students involved were 6, and number of students with disabilities were 4.
Was that 6 or 7?
6 students, no, 6. So sometimes it will either be one or the other, and sometimes it's both.
Okay, yeah.
Our district uses CPI for their seclusion and restraint, so we will go ahead and make sure that all staff are trained in seclusion and restraint, and that they are properly filling out the forms when necessary. And when a child with a disability is involved, that we take a look at their IEP to make sure that we are properly servicing them and providing them the supports they need so that such incidents don't happen.
So I just want to ask a point of clarity. So all teachers are trained in restraints now? Because I know that wasn't the case before.
All teachers are not, usually all teachers are not trained.
It's a team.
It's usually a team that can come in and do whatever needs to be done for that child. I will make sure that we currently have Miss Haley at the elementary, who's a trainer. She's been trained. And so we'll see how we can adequately train more staff. Because the staff that usually are trained is not.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify because I think you just said all, so that's why I was like. wait,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I may have misspoken.
Okay.
Currently, we have a team at each building, or it's just a district team?
There was a team in each building. Many of the individuals who comprise the teams are no longer with us.
But that's still our goal to have it any.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Ms. Ramos? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate the report and the update. All right,
Have a good night.
let's go on to our item number 5, our engaged board and community lead, our Neola policy revisions, first reading.
So if I may, Vito, If anyone wants to join me with the 3-hour session with Steve Bloom in any one of these sessions, please feel free to. But with that being said, as far as the content is concerned with these policies, not a lot of the content changed. In fact, it mostly was around pronouns. So if you know, over time, we went to he, she pronouns, and now we're moving to them, they, and their. In the majority of these policies, I still will encourage you to read the policies. So obviously, so understanding what's in the policies, but the majority of what transpired in this session with these policies was mostly majority of change in pronouns.
There was actually two that I had actually a question about. The first one was for policy 0161 parliamentarian authority, right? Revised. So this said the policy is drafting note for revised to clarify the appointment of parliamentarian during a board meeting if there's a challenge to the parliamentarian procedure. This also provides greater flexibility for the board. So could you have them clarify a little bit more in relationship to that part of it? I mean, because again, well, with our board, I think how our meetings go is a little bit different, but I'd like clarification in relationship to that 0161,
Clarification in terms of what?
the parliamentarian part of it.
So basically, the way we operate is we adhere to Robert's
Rules of Order. Right.
And that's how I've only known us to operate
Right.
here in the school district of Brown Deer, when you look for something.
No, well, actually, when I was sitting there and I was thinking about that, all right, I would like for them to sit up there and say it would be the Robert's Rule of Order rather than just parliamentarian, because, you know, there is more than just Robert's Rules of Order that governs board meetings.
Right, I believe that's in our administrative guidelines, like it's clearly delineated in our administrative guidelines, but we'll double check it.
If you could do that for me and stuff, I just, like I said before, I just wanted to make sure that there was clarification in relationship to that one. And then number two was 5113, that open enrollment program. And so the policy says this policy has been reorganized to make it easier for districts to use when evaluating open enrollment applications and to include clarification regarding preferential processing of applications for siblings of any student selected in the random selection process, rather there is space in the siblings grade level. So for all intents and purposes, then, is this policy saying that if there is a student that has been accepted in an open enrollment, we can accept the siblings as well too?
If the board so chooses.
So again, I just wanted to make sure that it was clear, because I know before what was happening was we could have one student could be in open enrollment, but we weren't taking the siblings.
Right, it's up to the board.
We weren't. Yeah.
And if we still aren't, then we need to change, the language, that we are not.
Make it clear.
Right. So again, for my thing is, well, I mean, right now, we don't do open enrollment because of the numbers that we have, as well as the demographics, right? But now if we are ever to go back to say we were going to do open enrollment again, right? Before, what the policy was, we did open enrollment, that student was admitted, but we didn't automatically let siblings in. Right.
It's still a board level decision.
So it's a board level decision. So, but I wanted to make sure that when we sit up there and we're doing this first reading with this Neola policy, we're doing is that we think about this, because it could change for us. We could actually, next school year, who knows, we could go back into open enrollment or whatever. And, you know, that may be a part of a discussion that we may have, that we're going to also accept the sibling. If one student is accepted, then we're accepting siblings. Or it could just be that student is accepted and the siblings, if they didn't make it through that random selection, then they weren't able to come.
Notice though, too, the language you just read is that, I didn't mean to interrupt, but then it was talking about, and that's an example, I think, is that if there was space in the siblings grade level, so it may not be, you know, there's automatic, you know, it's totally up to the board. You can do it where if they have a sibling, then all the siblings get put into the district regardless of whether there are open enrollment spots, or they're just put preferential if there's one seat available at third grade and the sibling is third grade, they would.
That student could come in.
Want to get that. So I mean, there's a lot of nuances as to how the board, decides to do it. Obviously, if you do zeros across the board, then
you don't have to worry about it.
It's relevant, but those are options. Yeah.
I'd like for us to consider including the siblings, and the reason being is that a lot of times, let's say, for instance, you have a single parent, or even if you have, two parents, it's a little confusing and a little problematic sometimes to push one kid from one school to another versus taking them all to the same place. I know people who do that. It's like one child is at this school and one is at the other school, and they're bouncing them back and forth. That can be kind of tough. So just kind of would like for people to kind of consider trying not to create a hardship for people.
But that's not a decision we're making tonight.
No, this is just, no, that's
I
not.
understand. I'm just saying, when we're thinking about it for the future, just to kind of consider that.
Right,
That's all.
but our focus is on policies,
Mhm.
questions regarding specifically the policies.
Yeah, that's what this is in relation to that first read. So this is specifically about the policy itself. We'll get into the new, if we do decide to go open the road, then we'll get into the nuances of that part, right, of that. But for right now, we're just actually looking at the policy itself. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood and we got it. And if there was something that we wanted to change in there, if we ever went to it, then we were.
Okay, I'm confused because you indicated that the preferential treatment right now.
We don't have open
Zero.
enrollment. We don't have open
Okay,
enrollment.
it's just for open enrollment.
Right, this is only open enrollment only. We don't have open enrollment because I said the reason why is because of the numbers that we have of students that we have right now and demographics. So, but that could ultimately change. And if so, then we'd want to have the policy in place to be able to make that change as a board, if that was what we chose to be able to do. Ms. Robinson, you had a question?
I have a question on a different, on the bullying policy, are we?
Number, please.
55-1701. What are we saying that we're gonna do? Now that that reporting has been made optional, are we saying we're still gonna report? The annual bullying report, because I just understand what did we revise it to? When we determined that it was optional, is that what you're saying?
We didn't determine it. So when you say we
I
determined
mean,
it,
when we found out that the state does not require, because what I was reading, it looks like it says annually you need to report your bullying data. And then what is this saying that Brown Deer will do? Or is this saying what Brown Deer will do now that it's optional?
it is not clarified in that particular policy, but we can if that's what we want to
Well,
do.
are we currently following the annual reporting?
I've not, in my tenure as superintendent, I've not seen anything come down saying to report or where we report or how we report. I mean, it would be something we would need to investigate.
Could we investigate it just to see, and then so that we can determine if it's something we want to, I guess if we're not doing it, to do it, or if it's just optional, it's not beneficial.
So our purpose for, I'm just asking a question, and our purpose for reporting would be,
Do we?
did you say you don't?
No, I was just saying, this is, I'm assuming this is saying in 3.5, so what we revised to it. It seems as though it indicated that since there was a change in the requirement, we were changing our applications.
We didn't change. We did not, yeah, we did not change anything. I don't, but since I've been here, I've never, even in my previous role, I don't know that you've ever done.
Where do we keep that data?
In terms of bullying, in Skyward, I can tell you, but in Skyward, in our student information system, in Skyward,
So
yeah.
bullying would make it to Skyward, we would bypass Swiss. So we just go.
I cannot answer the question about Swiss.
Okay, all right, because
What I think is important for us is if the state has required that we do that report, I've not seen anything or anything come to my email from the state, or I've never known us to report out.
I think that's the reason why it says optional.
Right,
Right.
so I thought we were just finding out that it was newly optional and that we were changing.
No, it's been that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been that.
Any other board members have any other questions that they have in relationship to this first reading for these Neola policies? Now, let me finish this part though, real quick. So, because again, our board members, remember, this is like one of our big parts of what we do. And this is all the governance part and the policy and procedure things and stuff like that and stuff. So, I just want everybody to make sure if you did have questions in relationship to any of them, or, something that we may be missing during this first reading, please make sure that you say it. So that way, when we get ready to do the second reading, Dr. Kelsey Brown has an opportunity to take our questions and be able to take that back and get some clarification. So then when we get the second reading, she can let us know the questions that we did have. So we'll know exactly kind of where we're going before we approve this. All right, Dr. Kelsey Brown, sorry.
Just, I wanted to make sure, like, is there a specific question around 5113 that you want us to investigate around the open enrollment? Was there a question specific?
Well, I guess my question was going to,
Go.
well, I guess my question was getting ready to be is the way that it's written right now. If we wanted to change and go in and start back and do open enrollment with the way the policy is written right now, I would want to make sure that we would say we'd be able to do it.
Right, but you don't need me to go back to Neola and ask anything.
No, I was asking a question, but again, I would, matter of fact, actually ask Neola and stuff in relationship to that. If we got into it, if we wanted to change that, would we be able, well, power of the board to say we could do what we want to in relationship to that, but would there be anything that would hinder us, or would there be anything, would there be anything to hinder us from doing that? Or if there was, is there any other stipulations for it? Because would that have to happen at the very beginning of the school year? Or could that happen, like, say we end up in December and we say, you know what, we may want to do open enrollment in January, because you got to remember that's also, you got your third count in September, you got your third count in January. So if that was something that we wanted to be able to do, would that be an option for
Yes,
us?
the board can change. You can bring any policy to any agenda at any point in time. I would recommend, as the district administration comes to you in January, to say, here's where we believe we will land as far as open enrollment. I think December would be a good point in time, so that the policy is changed.
Change right before we go into January.
When
Yeah.
you go to the vote in January, you have to replace that one.
Yeah, okay. All right, anything else in relationship to word policy in Neola and for our first reading? All right, hearing and seeing none. All right. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the first reading?
I will make a motion to approve the first reading of the Neola recommended revisions to bylaws, policies as presented.
Thank you very much, Ms. Walker. Do we have a second? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ashley. All right, motion has been made and second. Any other further discussion or point of clarity? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor with raised hand and or aye? Those opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries unanimously 7-0. And now let's go on to our item number B. Just a quick update. Budget hearing and annual meeting, September 29th, 2022, in the middle school, South Commons at 6:00 p.m. Community members, you must be present to vote. So this is not a vote that you can do electronically. You must be in person in order to vote. So again, budget hearing and the annual meeting is September 29th at 6:00 in the middle school, South Commons area. And if you would like to be able to vote, you must be in person. Okay. All right, so now let's go on to our next item. Let me see. Item number 6, make a motion to go into closed session. Would someone like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to enter into closed session to consider strategy for crime detection and for prevention, and to discuss personnel matters pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85(1) CD.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Robinson. The motion has been made. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Thank you very much, Ms. Peterson. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion before we go into roll call vote? All right, hearing and seeing none. Ms. Ashley?
Vito,
Aye.
Daniel Ashley, aye. Megan,
Aye.
Peterson,
Aye.
Robinson, aye. Smith,
Aye.
and Walker.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
All right, we will now go into closed session at 6:54 p.m. Thank you very much. We will not be coming back into open session for this. So for the community, thank you very much for attending the District of Brown Deer School Board meeting. Enjoy the remainder of your evening and the weather for the rest of this week. And let's hope that our Packers do a little bit better job on next Sunday. So then that way that, you know, and the Badgers and the Brewers, you know, so so for Wisconsin, all Wisconsin related sports, let's hope for a better week.
Also, and for those of you who are looking for a way to enjoy the weather tomorrow evening, join us at Community Vibes.
Oh,
Last one for the
last one in the music. Who's the band this time?
The Kingfish Band.
The Kingfish Band? Who is?
Michelle Schofield, ex-board member's husband.
Oh, okay.
Also play on the 4th of July, but obviously they were right now, so.
Right. And then, and who is going to be our food truck vendors for this one?
We actually aren't having one.
Oh, so we got to bring our own grills?
I guess if you're hungry.
Okay.
I would bring a grill to the park. Maybe sit in the parking lot with it, but you can't come in the park with the grill.
Okay. All right, everybody. Have a wonderful evening and good night.